Good morning, everybody. I would call this a special edition of Wisdom Awakening, but this is really not Wisdom Awakening. This is something different, and we'll soon have an announcement that will reflect that before I come on. I want to give all of you an opportunity to join with me. And some of you are getting notices and being told that I'm on, and you'll be clicking in. So let's give that a couple minutes. And while we're doing that, let me just tell you that we're expanding our outreach in manifold ways, but you can now watch all of my production under the heading of the Awakening Network on Roku and on Fire Stick. Roku's in 50 million homes, Fire Stick's on 50 million homes. In 50 million homes, that means we've got the capacity now to reach into 100 million homes across the country. Of course, obviously, we won't be in all of those homes, but we want to get into as many of them as possible. So if you're a Fire Stick holder or you have Roku, go to your device, go to your television, and just click in the Awakening Network, and you will find the Awakening Network, not just Awakening or The Awakening, but the Awakening Network, and Wisdom Awakening. Our television program soon to come, Vision Awakening, my live stream of my radio program, The Awakening. All of it's going to be on there, in addition to special announcements that I'm going to be doing from time to time. And this is one of those special announcements. I wanted to come to you all and let you know that I've just voted this morning in the Virginia Republican Convention, okay? I wanted you all to be aware. My wife and I went out and we voted first thing this morning. We were among the very first to arrive to get that out of the way for the day. And for all of my Virginia listeners, now this is relevant for those of you who are not in Virginia, so don't tune out and say, oh, well, you know, this is for Virginia people. Hold on, because I'm going to get to something that applies to us all, okay? My wife and I both voted, and we bullet voted. We didn't vote for any other candidates. We bullet voted for our candidates. The constitutional offices are who we're nominating for. We bullet voted for Pete Snyder. I voted for Pete Snyder because I've known Pete Snyder for a decade. I've gotten to know his character. I've gotten to know him as a decent person, an honorable person. And let me just say this in preface, and I say this with all humility. I really do. I really do. So please accept it in that spirit. As I travel around the Commonwealth, I have people come up to me and say, I didn't move until I knew what you were doing. I wanted to know who you were supporting. And I'm going with whoever you're supporting because I believe in you. And well, I'm humbled by that. I really am. I really am. I've tried to conduct myself in a way that people can have confidence in my judgment. Some of my supporters have not always agreed with my judgments, but I've always tried to make the very best judgment I could to get the most conservative candidate I thought we could get elected, looking at the field overall and where people were coming from. And you know, people could disagree with some of the judgments that I've made, but that's always been my motivation. It's not been for money. It's not been for power. It's not been for influence. I don't do quid pro quos. If I help you, will you do this for me? I don't do that, okay? I don't do it. It's strictly on the basis of what do I really believe is best, not for me personally, but what is best for the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia. What is best for the people that listen to me and support me and follow me. So I just wanted to get that out there. So if you're one of those people for whom my opinion matters and which way I move is, at least if it's not dispositive, it's at least influences you or gives you something to think about. I want you to know that I haven't made these judgments lightly or quickly. Pete Snyder approached me as he was deciding to run and said, you know, if you are, can I have your support? even though he is a friend, and even though I have known him now for a decade, I didn't give him an immediate yes. I said, okay. I said, I appreciate that. Let me think about it and pray about it. And there are other candidates in the race that I know. And I think it would only be fair to at least talk to them or give them an opportunity to talk to me before I make a decision. But I told him I won't make a decision until I've talked to you first. I won't make a decision without letting you know before I announce anything if I were to go another way. Either way, I'll be back in touch with you. So we finally, I prayed about it and thought about it. And I tell you, there were three things that struck me. One is Pete's character. As I've said before, some of you may not have heard this story, but when I won the nomination and bested Pete, he came in second for the nomination for lieutenant governor in 2013, and I beat him out at the convention. That following morning, there was 7 candidates in the race, 7. And that following morning, there was not a single other candidate to be found. At the first rally we held, there was one other candidate out in the crowd, not up on the stage, out in the crowd, holding up an E.W. Jackson for lieutenant governor sign. And to me, that was indicative of the man's strength and character. He had just lost a major effort in which he had expended tremendous energy and money and had come so close, but I beat him. And instead of him going home and crawling into a fetal position, he was out there early the following morning holding up an E.W. Jackson for lieutenant governor sign. And to me, that told me a lot about the man's character. And from that point on, he and I talked, commiserated about a whole variety of things, and we become friends. And let me add that he approached me about his Virginia 30-day fund. And I'll tell you something, I was impressed because I didn't hear any other person in political leadership trying to figure out what we as Americans, what we as fellow Virginians could do to help our small businesses. And it wasn't about helping Republicans. It wasn't about helping people of a particular background. It was about helping any Virginian who runs a small business who was in trouble. And my wife and I said, you know what, man, this is it. We've got to help this. This is what we ought to be doing as Virginians, as Christians, as citizens of the Commonwealth, as just caring people, compassionate, decent people with all the folks who are hurting as a result of COVID. He's the only one who offered that kind of leadership. That to me is the kind of governor we need. In fact, Ralph Northam was busy shutting businesses down, and Terry McAuliffe, I guess, was busy somewhere, I don't know, holding on to Hillary Clinton's coattails, I guess. I mean, because he's a Hillary Clinton person, Terry McAuliffe is. I mean, he's part of that whole Clinton cabal. And I guess he was somewhere doing whatever bidding she had for him to do, because this man is not for the Commonwealth of Virginia. He was nowhere to be found during all this. I guess he's out gallivanting somewhere with his leftist friends. And he wants to come back for a second term, to serve a second term as governor. No way. When I assessed the field, I thought, A, the person whose character I most trust is Pete Snyder. And then I said, B, the person whose competence I most trust is Pete Snyder, because the man is an entrepreneur. He's a leader. He's a job creator. He's proven himself as a competent entrepreneur and businessman. And that's the kind of person we need. And then the third thing was his courage, his conviction. And it's been proven out. As you know, the mainstream media, folks, even though I'm not running for office, the mainstream media, I want to make sure everything's good here. The mainstream media still talks about me like I could be the next president or something. I mean, that's believe me, I don't deserve any of that, and certainly don't want the things that they say about me. But they can't help themselves. They're obsessed with the 2013 convention where I won it. You know, and in fact, I just read one media outlet that claimed to be neutral and nonpartisan described me as far right. And they just keep coming back to me as one of the biggest mistakes the Republican Party ever made. I mean, they seem to forget all about The fact that I was only the lieutenant governor candidate, not the gubernatorial candidate, but they act like I was at the top of the ticket. Well, none of that backed Pete Snyder off. Because you took the endorsement of Bishop E.W. Jackson? Yes, he said, and proudly, gladly. That's the kind of courage that we need. Now, let me just tell you, folks, if you haven't voted yet, and I know some of you are considering Kirk Cox. Kirk Cox never even approached me, never even talked to me. Not a word, not a call, not a text, not a hey, EW, can I at least make my pitch? Nothing. And you know what that tells me? That tells me he doesn't respect me, but more importantly, because here, I mean, what does that matter? But it also means he doesn't respect the people who support me. He doesn't respect the people who believe that I have something to offer this Commonwealth. And Pete Snyder is the one who stands up and says, EW, you are a treasure to this Commonwealth. We are so blessed to have you here and to have your voice. Kirk Cox hasn't even looked in my direction. I don't have anything against the man, and it's not an ego thing for me, but it tells me that he doesn't want to be associated with someone like me. In other words, he doesn't want to be associated with someone who the mainstream media can't stand and who they call far right, which simply means I'm a non-compromising conservative, and that's all they need to know. Because they hate conservatives in general, and if you're a conservative of conviction, forget it. They don't want to hear anything you have to say. Pete Snyder's never wavered. I was just at a rally with him on Thursday night with Ken Cuccinelli and Mark Obenshain and Congressman Bob Good from the 5th District, all friends of mine, all people. And I want to mention particularly Bob Good, since he's newly elected. I mean, a man of such courage and conviction and Christian character. I just really, and he's here again. I supported him early on. One of the best political decisions I ever made. But I saw, again, the same thing. I saw character. I saw competence. And I saw courage. And I see that in Pete Snyder as well. And so let me just tell you, I've said this, and I don't have anything against Kirk Cox. He's being supported by George Allen. That tells us a lot. I mean, it's kind of the establishment type. I mean, George Allen was one of the people who helped usher in the left by losing a couple of important Senate races for us. But that's another matter. George is also a friend of mine. I don't have anything against him. But I just think politically, they're passé. They're not the future of the Commonwealth. They're the past. And we can't go back there because it's a losing proposition. And I would say that to George's face. I don't, it's not like I'm, dumping on him or slandering him or anything like that. I'm just saying what I believe is really political reality. And then there's Glenn Youngkin, who also never approached me. The only time Glenn Youngkin approached me was he sent a staff member to basically call me a liar because I'd been saying that he gave money to the Southern Poverty Law Center and Hillary Clinton. And the reason why, quote unquote, according to the staffer, I was lying was because he didn't do it, his company did. And to me, folks, can I just be honest? Here again, I don't know Glenn Youngkin personally, don't have anything against him personally, but that rubbed me the wrong way. Because first of all, you're calling me a liar, and then you're going to sort of thread the needle. Oh, well, he didn't do it, his company did it. And I mean, please, your company gives Hillary Clinton $200,000 and you don't have anything to do with it? That's crazy. And if that's the way you operate a company, why would I entrust you with the power of governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia? And then you're going to call me a liar because I pointed this out, others have done it as well, that you raised money for one of the most vicious, bigoted, anti-Christian, anti-American, conservative-hating organizations in America, the Southern Poverty Law Center. And to me, it would have been real manhood and real political courage to say to me and to others, hey, folks, I blew it. I know I blew it. That was a big mistake on my part, and believe me, I regret it. I wasn't paying enough attention to these things because at that point, I was simply not as aware as I am now of how pernicious the Southern Poverty Law Center is. If I had been, believe me, the decision would have been different. But I wasn't, and I didn't do my due diligence the way I should have, and I really do regret that. I would have respected that. I would have said, you know what? Who hasn't made a mistake? But no, instead you get this kind of weasel. Well, it wasn't me, it was my company. Well, I didn't really know. And well, I mean, you know, so whatever, shall we say, neutrality I had toward his candidacy then became hostility toward his candidacy, not toward him personally, because I believe that the man can grow and he can make a contribution to the Commonwealth of Virginia. We as Republicans have got to stick together. So I'm not saying I hate him or anything like that, okay? All I'm saying is he's not ready to be governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Come on. He just gave who knows how many, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars into the hands of a conservative hating group like the Southern Poverty Law Center last year, folks. Here again, if it were a decade ago, I might not even be saying anything about it. But it was last year. And you know, the last thing I'd say is, you know, look, some people criticized me when I first ran for office back in 2011. I ran for U.S. Senate, and people said, wow, you know, why don't you run for something smaller? But my thought was, you know, federal issues, constitutional issues are really what moved me and motivate me. And so I just went for the office that I thought I would fit my life best and fit my interests and my motivations best. And so I went for it. It was a big office to run for the first time. And believe me, I found out just how difficult it is to run for a major office like that, having never run for office before and not being as wealthy as a Glenn Youngkin is. I found out, boy, it is a challenge. It is a challenge. If I had it to do over again, I think I'd probably do it because I really felt that's what God was calling me to do, and it laid the groundwork for some other things. But I'll tell you what, it's no joke. It's tough. But you know what? Before I ran, I'd been in the trenches knocking on doors. I'd been in the phone banks calling people. I'd been contributing. I'd been attending Republican meetings. You know, the folks in Chesapeake will tell you, I've been there. I no longer live in Chesapeake, but while I lived there. I was active. I was contributing in every way I could. Time, money, energy, whatever I could give, I was giving. And it wasn't with any thought of ever running for office. It really wasn't. It was with the thought of simply trying to help the cause I believed in. And I believe that the Republican principles are exactly what this country needs, and Democrat principles will be the destruction of our country if we don't put a stop to it. I don't know where Glenn Youngkin's been. I really don't. I mean, is there somebody who can attest to, oh yeah, he's been with us all the way? Well, frankly, if he had, he wouldn't have had his company giving money to the Southern Poverty Law Center last year because he would have known better. So that shows he's been disconnected. See, when I ran, people could say, well, he's running for a big office too quick. And I think it was a fair criticism. But they couldn't say, well, where's he been? Nobody knows him. He hasn't been working with the Republican Party. He hasn't been supporting us. In fact, before I ran, I won the award for, I think it was top volunteer for the entire state. Volunteer. I mean, wasn't doing it for that reason, but I was recognized at the Republican advance and given that award by then chairman. So here again, I'm not saying that Youngkin can't redeem himself and make a contribution to the politics and public policy of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm just saying I don't believe he's got the bona fides for us to entrust him with governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Okay? That's just on that one race. I'm supporting Winsome Sears for lieutenant governor because Winsome Sears brings something to the table in addition to her Marine Corps background, Semper Fi, hoorah, as you can see. And obviously that endears me to her because I know what the Marine Corps does for people. It instills in people a sense of discipline. And for all military people, I have the same sort of predisposition toward them because it instills discipline. It instills determination. I mean, it's a mark of who you are when you've gone through military service. You've experienced what that training that you have to go through and the things that you have to deal with in order to successfully finish your military service. And she brings that. But in addition to that, she is the only Republican I know in the history of the modern Republican and Democrat parties to actually win a majority Democrat district as a Republican. Now, she happens to be black. I think that's certainly not why I'm voting for her, not why I'm supporting her. But I tell you what, it's an asset that I'm not ignoring in our present climate. I'd be stupid to. But I think she's hands down, no matter what the color of her skin, I think she's hands down the best candidate in the race. Winsome Sears for lieutenant governor. And then lastly, Chuck Smith for attorney general. I'm supporting Chuck. I believe that Chuck is the most articulate and the most determined conservative in the race for attorney general. Now, there's some others that I really don't know that well, and I don't think they have much of a chance. The only person I think who has any chance at all against Chuck Smith is Jason Miyares, and I've heard many, many things about Jason Miyares that question his conservative bona fides. I've had personal experience with Jason Miyares the first time I ran when I had a very, very bad situation within my campaign because I was a novice and people were taking advantage of me. And they turned to him. Some people who were against me turned to him. And I'm thinking he's experienced. He'll be neutral. And believe me, it cost me. It cost me. So he's somebody I simply don't trust. I simply don't trust him. Now, if these people win the nomination because I'm a good Republican, I'm going to support them. Okay? I'm going to support them. Might not be enthusiastic, but I'm going to support them. I'll do my very best. I'm not disloyal. If I'm a Republican, unless here again, if you are not pro-life, I don't care who you are, I'm not supporting you. I don't care what. If you do what Denver Riggleman did in the 5th District and you start performing gay same-sex marriage ceremonies, I'm not supporting you, period. I don't care what your label is. But barring fundamental moral issues, I am going to support Republicans. Okay, so let me just say, given everything I've said, nothing should indicate to you that if I don't get my way in the nominating process, I'm out of it. I don't do that. I don't play that way. I don't play that way. Okay? I believe that even with my misgivings about certain Republican candidates in this race, they're going to be better than any Democrat. Hands down, all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. Okay? But I think Chuck Smith, if we were having a normal convention, I think Chuck Smith would get up on that stage, express his love for America, his unifying message, his understanding of the issues, his legal brilliance, and what he would bring to the Attorney General's office, and I don't think it would even be a contest. I really don't. I think he'd blow the rest of the candidates right out of the water. Now, there might be an outlier somewhere, but I don't think they'd have the organizational strength of a Chuck Smith who's been around the Commonwealth for decades and is well known by all of us. So, folks, I'm urging you, and I know there are some friends of mine who've already jumped on the bandwagon, and I love you anyway. We're not going to divide over this. But I'm urging all of my friends who are going out today to cast your ballot in your various sites around Virginia for the 3 constitutional offices. I'm urging you to vote for Pete Snyder, for Winsome Sears, and for Chuck Smith. And I'm urging you, now the candidates are not saying this. They probably can't or don't feel it would be appropriate or fair to say this. I can say it because I'm not a candidate. I would urge you to vote for one candidate only, and that's those candidates. Don't pick a second or third or fourth choice, because if you do, you undermine the potential of the number 1 choices to actually win. Pete Snyder, number 1. Winsome Sears, number 1. Chuck Smith, number 1. That's it. That's all. And just leave it at that. That's what my wife and I did today, and that's what I'm urging every Virginia delegate to do. And look, even if you don't agree with me and you're watching right now, I love you anyway, and we're going to be together after this nomination process is over. I have preached this since the time I began to run for office. We cannot win without unity. We can't. And I can be passionately in favor of my candidate and then at the same time turn around and say, but I am also profoundly committed to a Republican candidate succeeding over any Democrat that they put in the race. And so I'm going to be there doing whatever I can. I said I'm maybe not with the same enthusiasm, but let me clarify what I mean. That means I might not feel inside the same enthusiasm, but if you are watching me support a candidate that I did not support in the primary, you won't know the difference. See, I think that in these situations, loyalty is everything. It is everything. And this stuff of dividing and people getting all nasty and mean and ugly and hating each other. I mean, I had people tell me they didn't even want to go to church with the same people who supported another candidate after primary because it got ugly. And this one's gotten a little ugly. But I'm not participating in the ugliness. I'm just being honest with you, sharing my insights, my values, my attitude about these various candidates and why I'm supporting Pete Snyder, Winsome Sears, and Chuck Smith, and urging you to do the same. Now, I said for those of you listening in other parts of the country, you think, well, what's this got to do with me? This is Virginia. Here's what it's got to do with you, okay? We have got races coming up in this country next year, and we're going to have the same thing play out all over this nation. All over the nation. I believe the candidates that I picked are the most conservative candidates, the most reliable candidates, the most courageous candidates, and the candidates who will best govern. I don't think there's any question. There's no question in my mind about that. None. And look, we can't follow this establishment attitude that you pick the middle of the road, milk toast, weak-kneed, lily-livered, who calls himself or herself a Republican, and you put them up because they're going to get some of the Democrats to come over. No, they're not. Let me just tell you something, folks. There are many people in the Democrat Party right now who are completely disgusted with the far left garbage that is spewing from the mouths of these Democrat elites. They're pushing Black Lives Matter. They're pushing illegal immigration. They're pushing socialism. They're pushing critical race theory. They're pushing every vile, unconstitutional, degenerate thing you can think of. They're trying to turn people into bigots who believe that marriage is a union between one man and one woman, and they're trying to enshrine that into law so that you will be punished. They're trying to punish you if you dare call a man, or you refer to him as a he, because if he wants to be referred to as a she or a they, you will be duty-bound by law and punishable with fines and potentially imprisonment for quote-unquote misgendering someone. We just got rid of a Republican in the 5th District here in Virginia, Denver Riggleman. Oh. Goodbye, good riddance. What a waste. We don't need Republicans like that. We need Republicans who know who they are and know what they stand for and have the courage to defend it, because I think the American people are not looking for, if I may quote Ronald Reagan, pale pastels. They're looking for bold colors. And all over this country, wherever you're watching right now, we need to nominate people who have the courage of their convictions, who can say to some of these parents who are disgusted by their children being kept out of school because of the mass Nazis around the country, the leftists who are telling everybody, oh, even if you're vaccinated, even if you're outside, you still have to wear a mask. Wear two, as a matter of fact. I mean, people have had it with this stuff. The Democrat Party is revealing itself as a Marxist, socialist, and I dare say, communist party. I'm serious about that. I don't mean card-carrying communists. I don't mean they're meeting in little conspiratorial cabals, but their ideas are coming straight out of the Marxist playbook. That's where they're trying to take us, into a totalitarian system where you better not say what they don't agree with. I mean, look, they actually were passing rules telling people not to sing in church. I mean, that's worthy of Xi Jinping. Or worse, don't even go to church. Church is not essential. That's not an essential service. And I think people all over this country have had it with it. I think all these suburban moms that they talked about that turned against Donald Trump, I think that they're coming back to the Republicans because they realize these people that they have given power to are insane. And the only way you can undo that is to bring forward some milquetoast, mealy-mouthed, half-baked, doesn't know what he or she stands for Republican. And have people look and say, well, what's the difference? These people are crazy, and this one doesn't know what he stands for. So I said all that I've said about our Virginia election to say to all of you all over the country, wherever you are, you've got to look for candidates with courage and conviction and, yes, competence, the ability to get the job done. But what we don't need is more, quote unquote, establishment types who think that being a Republican is enough. Noblesse oblige. I mean, some of them are as bad as the Democrats with the well, we owe it to the masses, and we owe it to the rabble to provide them with the kind of leadership that we offer. We don't stand for anything, but it's our duty, it's our moral obligation to give them leadership because obviously everybody knows we're better than they are. We don't need that. We don't need that. That's a losing proposition. That's how Virginia has gotten to be where it is now. Compromise every step of the way. And I won't go back and start talking about former governors that I've known, but, you know, threading the needle and compromising and thinking because somebody got up in arms and made some big show of something. I've said, I am so grateful to God for Ron DeSantis because I've said if you want election reform, it's supposed to happen at the state legislative level. There will be a constitutional challenge if Nancy Pelosi and her gang decide that they're going to try to take control of our state and local elections. That is unconstitutional. Shouldn't surprise us because they don't care anything about the Constitution. I don't think they even know anything about the Constitution. I remember the governor of New Jersey said when they asked about, well, have you considered the Constitution in these moves you're making? No, that's above my pay grade. Well, how about that little oath you took? Oh, that doesn't matter. These people don't care anything about the Constitution. They care about power. And these state legislatures have got to take the bull by the horns and do what needs to be done to secure the integrity of our electoral process. And I don't care if the whole Democrat Party get all their people together and call them a bunch of racists. I don't care. They should ignore it because they're doing what's right. As an American of African ancestry, I don't want to prevent anybody from voting. I really do not. I certainly don't want to prevent black people, Hispanic people, or Asian people from voting. I really do not. But I don't want people voting who've got no right to vote. And the only way you can stop that is you got to have voter ID, you got to have signature verification, you got to stop this ballot harvesting, you got to stop allowing these machines to basically go out and manufacture votes. And don't tell me it's not happening, because the Heritage Foundation has done a study that shows that there are thousands of instances across the country of voter fraud. And every time a liberal stands up and says there's been no proof of widespread voter fraud, he's told a big, bold-faced lie. And the only reason not to want these reasonable restrictions on the voting process is you want to cheat. And the Republican Party is going to have to take firm action. I don't care if the New York Times puts you on the headline every week as the biggest racist in the country. You got to do what you got to do in order to preserve this constitutional republic. Because if you convince people that the voting process is of no good, is of no use, accomplishes nothing, because the Democrat Party will cheat their way to victory every time. You convince most people of that, and there's only one thing left, and you know what it is. And I abhor even the thought we become a third world banana republic that resolves our political differences in the streets instead of resolving them at the ballot box. Because if the ballot box is so polluted and there's so little confidence in it that you can't, it seems futile to even cast a ballot, what's left? And the proof of the pudding is in the eating. You know what? When these reasonable, you watch what happens in Georgia. I guarantee you there will be just as many black people voting in the upcoming Georgia elections in every other state that passes reasonable voter requirements for ID and proof of identity for voting. You watch, there will be just as many minority people voting as there ever been. And I don't know what the left is going to say then. Oh, there would have been more if we had just opened things up and let any Tom, Dick, and Harry walk in and say, you know, I'm George Washington reincarnated. Give me a ballot. So folks, this is relevant for all of us. Here in Virginia, we are voting today for the Republican nominees, and I trust that all of the Virginians in the Commonwealth will go out and cast your ballot, and I'm urging every friend, every supporter, every person who has confidence in E.W. Jackson to vote for Pete Snyder for governor, Winsome Sears for lieutenant governor, and Chuck Smith for attorney general. We'll see what the outcome is tomorrow, and whatever the outcome, we'll go on from there. God bless each and every one of you. I love you. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for our Commonwealth. I love this Commonwealth of Virginia. I believe we are the most important state in the Union because we're the foundation for everything else that's happened in our country. Our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, all emanated from Virginia. And we've got to preserve Virginia and get it out of the hands of these pseudo-Marxists and put it back in the hands of people who believe in our country, believe in our Constitution, believe in the constitutional republic that we have been given by our founding fathers, and want to make the best life possible for every American, every citizen of the Commonwealth, based upon their own choices, talents, abilities, hard work, not based on some ridiculous attitude that we've got to somehow try to make everybody the same. It's impossible, and it only leads to authoritarianism and totalitarianism. So God bless you. And listen, I will let you all know on Monday morning at 8:30 a.m. during Wisdom Awakening what the outcome of the Virginia convention was. Because, you know, we're not having an actual convention. We're voting in various locations throughout the Commonwealth. So it's a virtual convention, not an actual convention. But that's what Governor Ku Klux Klan mask and Governor Blackface has given us here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Things are opening in other places, but no, not here in Virginia, because Governor Ralph Northam knows best for all of us. And he has just basically just destroyed the economy of this state. And we need somebody like Pete Snyder, who is a businessman and an entrepreneur, to help us rebuild it and put people back to work. He's responsible for 1,000 businesses surviving across the Commonwealth based on his and Burson, his wife, and the people who supported them chipping in their personal money to try to help small businesses all across the Commonwealth without reference to party or race or religion or anything else, just helping our fellow citizens to survive the horrendous debacle created by the failed, ridiculous, incompetent leadership of Ralph Northam. And it's that kind of leadership. Pete Snyder offers the kind of leadership that this Commonwealth needs at this critical moment. So I trust you all will nominate him, Winsome, and Chuck Smith to be our ticket leading into November. And we're going to kick Terry McAuliffe's backside right on out of the Commonwealth, back on up to New York with Hillary Clinton, where he really lives anyway, at least in his own head. God bless you all. That's going to do it for us today. God bless you all. Hey, remember, we cannot be defeated if we will not quit.